Hi, in this tutorial we are going to go over how to traverse recursive methods. So in our first example we have a pretty simple recursive method called mystery, and the parameter that we're going to use is 3. And when you work with a recursive method, you basically are just going to follow the directions inside the method. So it says if n is equal to 0, which in this case it's not, it's 3. We return 1. Otherwise, we're going to return 2 times. So let's say this thing is going to return 2 times, and then we're going to recall the method, mystery, with n minus 1. So since n was 3, now we're going to call it with 2. And now once we recall the method, now we got to read the directions again, but now for mystery 2. So when we call it with mystery 2, it's going to return, because 2 is not equal to 0, it's going to return 2 times mystery 1, right? Because n minus 1 would give us 1. And now we're going to follow the directions for mystery 1. So when I use mystery 1, it's still not 0, so it's going to return 2 times mystery 0. Now when I call it with 0, now it's reached what we call the base case. So, and this is what basically causes it to stop running. So now that n is equal to 0, this mystery 0 is going to return a 1. So basically we're going to say that this value here is equal to 1. And if we follow the math here, 2 times 1 is equal to 2. So this value of 2 is going to get sent up to the next level here for mystery 1. So the value of mystery 1 is 2. And therefore 2 times 2 here is now going to give me a value equal to 4. And that is brought up to the next level. So that 4 goes in for mystery 2. So 2 times 4 is now 8. And that gets brought up to the final. So our final answer here is going to be 8 for that one. So when we do a recursive method, you can see we just keep calling it down until we get to the base case, and then we work our way back up again. In our second example, we are going to look at what happens when you have a system.out inside the method. And what we want to talk about is where that system.out is located. So in this particular one, we actually have one system.out before the method call and another one after. And I'll show you how each one of those are treated. So then when I first call this, I'm calling it with the numbers 1, 2, 3. So if I read that method, it's actually going to print out whatever x mod 10 is, which is going to be 3. So down here, I'm going to kind of use this section below here just for my output. So that's going to output a 3. After it outputs the 3, now we're going to move to that if statement, and it says that if x divided by 10 is not equal to 0, so 123 divided by 10 is not 0, it's going to then recall the method with a new number, which is x divided by 10. So now we're going to call it with mystery 12, right? When we divide by 10, we basically get rid of that 3. So we call it mystery 12. And then there's a system.out after that if statement, but because I just recalled the method, that sends me back to the top again. So that system.out at the bottom actually is going to get read later on. So now when I call it with 12, my new call, it's going to print x mod 10, which is going to give me a 2. And then we're going to go ahead and follow the if statement. And that if statement says if x divided by 10 is not equal to 0, which it's not, it's now going to recall itself, mystery, with now x divided by 10, which is just 1. And again, like I said, the system.out doesn't get executed right now. Now I recall it again, and this time, again, it's going to print x mod 10, which is going to be a 1. And the if statement now is no longer true. X divided by 10 is equal to 0. So therefore, this is basically your base case. This is where it's going to stop. is when I get to a point where that if statement is no longer true, which it's not. So now once I've reached the end, now just like in the last example, I read back up, but now I'm going to go ahead and execute that bottom system.out for each one of the calls. So it basically takes care of the bottom one, then the next one, then the next one. So when it does the system.out for the bottom one, for 1, x mod 10 is going to be a 1, so it's going to print a 1. When it does it for the next one up, which is the 12, it's going to print a 2. And when it does it for the first one, it's going to print a 3. And so therefore my final answer would be 3, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, 3. So the first system.out that was before the call got read as we went. The second one gets read kind of backwards from the bottom up once we get to the base case. In our last example, we are now going to work with strings. So if we go through, we're calling the method mystery now with the string x, y, z, y. And it says that if the length of the string is 1, it's going to return 0, which it's not. The length of the string is 4. So otherwise, it says if the str.substring 0, 1, that basically means if the first letter, right? Substring 0, 1 is just pulling the very first letter. So it's saying if the first letter is equal to y, we're going to return 1 plus a new call. Otherwise, we're just going to return a new call. So in this case, it's not a y. So it's really just going to now return mystery with the string now. How is the string changing when I call it the next time? Well, it looks like we're doing the substring starting at 1. So AK, it's just chopping off the first letter each time. So when you're doing problems like this, you want to kind of look for the pattern, especially with strings. What is it doing to change the string on each new recall? So when I go to read it for the next call here, mystery YZY, the length is not 1, it's still 3. The substring, the very first letter, is a Y this time. So this time it's going to return 1 plus the call to mystery. And this is going to be now ZY, right? We're chopping off the first letter. And then finally, we get to the last call here. Again, the length is not 1. So now, but the first letter is not a Y. So it's just going to call mystery and again, chopping it off. And now I think we have reached our base case, because the base case is basically saying if the length is 1, that's basically when we're going to stop recalling the method again. So the length is 1 now. So this one, the very last call here, is going to return the value of 0. So this value of 0 that this is equal to is now going to get sent up to the one above it, right? And then 1 plus 0 is going to equal 1. And that's going to get sent up to the one above it, which is just 1, which is going to get sent up again. So my final answer here is just going to be a 1. So we've looked at 3 different examples. One, which I would call the very first one, is a pretty basic recursive problem. Second one, maybe a little bit more complicated, but basically focusing on the system.outs. And then this last one giving you a little focus on strings. So there are 3 examples to kind of get you started in figuring out how to traverse and read recursive methods.